All right, welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to anybody. Welcome anybody new here. Sorry if I'm sounding a little haggard. This may or may not be being recorded at about 4 a.m. after no sleep. Uh, it's one of those days. Well, 2 days. I don't know how you would judge it, but either way, today's today's tackle tip Tuesday is going to be about my number one. Yes, I'm saying number one go-to fall bait. All right, so like I said in the intro, today's video is all about my number one go-to fall bait. Mind you, it has its variations, so it's not always going to look the exact same. But the name's the same. One, it's going to have the same idea. Two, behind how you're fishing it, and three, it really is like a go-to. So it's one of those things like you might use different versions of it, but it's still the same thing, and you'll see why. All right. So obviously, if you can tell here, these are all jerk baits. My fall go-to bait is a jerk bait. Now, everyone might wonder why. The first thing I'm going to tell everybody is normally in the fall you would be fishing minnows. So a good portion of your bait fish size is going to be about as big as this jerk bait right here. That's like a 1.5 inch. I think that is a X-Wrap. Don't quote me on that. I'm going to try and find all of these for you guys and list them in the description below. Obviously, if you guys know what they're called, name them in the comments below for me, and then I can find them if I don't have the names for them. I'm pretty sure I have a good positive idea of like what they're all called. Like, I know this is HJ, so Husky Jerk. I think that's a 14 or a 12. I think this is a Monster Bass or a Sixth Sense. Yeah, I think that's a Sixth Sense jerkbait. I'm not exactly sure what the name of that one is. That's Matsuo America. Matsuo America. Like I said, that's a Rapala X-Wrap. And then this is just a... I think this is just a suspending Rapala. I'm not exactly sure on the name on that one. It might be an HJ something like 5 or something like that. It might be that version, just a smaller thing. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go over each one of these individually and kind of give you guys the lowdown or the heads up basically on what you would try to use them for specifically. Some of them have multi-purposes. Some of them have pretty strict purposes. Like you wouldn't use these in the same sentence. You know what I'm saying? It's a pretty distinct difference between the two, but some of them do kind of bleed over into the other ones. So we'll start the biggest, and then we'll go down to the smallest, and each one I will separate basically for you guys, fish species and like how you would fish them. So we'll start with this guy. This is HJ 14 or 13. I believe this is Fire Tiger or Tiger Perch. I'm not exactly sure which color this is. I have a bunch of different versions of this stuff, and that's because they work. So this right here in the fall, whether run behind, so for you guys that go trolling, obviously if you've never run one of these before, they make these in, this is a shallow one, but they make them in like a deep diver and all that other stuff. You can troll them obviously behind boards, and it'll produce pretty much anything you want, from bass, northern, walleye, all of the above. Another way you can use this is like when the fish move up shallow. So in the fall, when the water cools again, fish tend to push shallower. So you have the ability to take this guy right here and fish flats around piers, over the tops of weed lines or weed edges. And that's the same thing you'll end up chasing with this guy. You're usually chasing like northern pike, sometimes the big bass, depending on your forage base, will feed on this. And then obviously walleye and any other game fish that feeds on, what is this, like a 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like a 5.5 inch bait. I think they make them bigger, and obviously they make them smaller, but this is basically my go-to big fish bait. They work. They've been making them for years. This one's actually got teeth marks in it from last fall, so they work. But let's go into the next one. Okay, so in comparison to this guy, you can tell. I'll put the noses together for you. You can tell this one's not that much shorter, but it is a little bit less body. So the way this one fishes, I've only fished it for one season, but I've seen it fished a million different times, and I know for a fact that, I mean, you can use this for smallmouth fishing, but I know that this specific one, yeah, that's a 6 cents bait. This specific one works really good when you're working like a shallow water rock pile or like a weed edge or something like that. Anywhere there's a bunch of big smallmouth piled up, you can see how big it is. I believe this is like a 1, 2, 3. It's like a 3.5 inch bait. So this is like a 4.5. This is like a 3.5, or even 4 and 3.5, something like that. But either way, this guy right here is your smallmouth candy. You guys that like chasing those big smallmouth and rivers, creeks, shorelines and stuff like that when they start piling in for the fall, this is going to be your go-to bait for that. Personally, I want to get a couple more of these. This is the only one of these that I own. Like I said, you could probably use these, but I would much rather use this size. It just seems to be a better like in between versus like the really big ones. So this is the 6 cents bait. Like I said, once I get through all these things, I'm going to look all this up and make sure that you guys get, you know, exactly what I'm using here in the description below. I try to list everything in the description below if you guys are new here. Obviously, if you're not new here, you know that that's what I do. But this is going to be, like I said, I think, honestly, you could probably use this for walleye and stuff like that. But I would probably stick with the smallie target with just this one. Okay, so you got those two. Now the next size down in comparison is this guy. So if this is like 3.5, this is probably 2.5. It's definitely a lot smaller. Now this is like, it's not a balsa, because that's the old style that you would usually use. It's made by Rapala, or Rapala, however you want to say it. But this guy right here, in any natural forage or anything like that, like the color basically, so this is like a golden lake shiner. Obviously you'd use like a silver or maybe a bait fish color of other kinds, but this size right here tends to be the dual, I guess you call it. Everything will eat this. And I mean, you can catch bluegills to, I've gotten some of my biggest northern pike in my life on this specific size, which is kind of funny because like in the same sentence, I've thrown this one, and not gotten a big northern pike, but it's the forage base. There tends to be more forage base that's this short in 99% of the bodies of water you're ever going to fish, that this just seems to work better. So I always have one of these around. I mean, I probably have like 10 to 15 this size. I have jointed ones, I have all the other ones, but as far as jerk baits, this little guy right here is a go-to. And like I said, I think this is a suspending one. It might even be a countdown. No, I think it's either a suspending one or a floater, but for shallower water. So that's something like, you know, anything 5 feet or less, you'd want to use this on, or maybe over the tops of weed tops. So I guess if you were fishing like 10 feet of water, and then the weeds came up 5 feet, so then you're fishing 5 foot down just over the tops of the weeds. This guy will kill them every time. So go get yourself a bunch of these guys. This is one of the ones that I would stock up on. Like, if you don't have a lot of big bait fish around, I mean, obviously get a couple of these. This color works, and I'll suggest some of the other colors at the end here, but you know, get a couple of those if you want to fish some big fish. But this guy will get you the big fish that this guy will get, and obviously at a much cheaper price. So, okay, so we were just talking about this guy, and you're gonna, someone usually is gonna say something normally, but if you guys don't say anything, thank you, and you're gonna be like, well, that's so close to the same exact size. It's actually not. So if I turn that up, it's probably like a 1/4 inch across, whereas that's almost a 1/2 inch across. The way this moves through the water is more indicative of like a minnow, like a baby minnow. So something that's really fresh, like fry. I guess you would say that, minnow fry. So this is going to move through the water a lot different than this one. And this, honestly, if you're going to buy any one of them out of all of these Matsuos, it's Matzuo America. These little guys are just deadly. I actually have, I'll just show you, because if you guys don't believe me, you can just watch any of my fall videos. I'm usually using them, but every one of these, and then some of the other ones around over here, are all Matsus. And it's something I discovered a couple of springs ago. Yeah, I was fishing in the spring. This little guy right here will catch you a bunch of crappie. If you're on a spring bite and the crappie are feeding on minnows, I mean, it's lights out. You can get a limit with these pretty quickly, and it beats buying bait left and right. Only downside in the spring versus the fall, and I just haven't run into this problem in the fall yet. I'm sure I will. But in the springtime, you always have like teeth swimming around with the crappie. So if you're crappie fishing with one of these guys, do what I do, invest in like 3-4 of them at a time. Otherwise, you're just going to lose one, and you'll be upset because you were catching a bunch of fish on it, and then, you know, old Toothy had to come through and take it from you. I think this is the this is a 2.5 inch size, and that's the size I would highly recommend getting. You'll catch everything on it: bass, northern, walleye, crappie, bluegills. Everything bites this. If it swims and eats minnows, it'll eat this. Okay, last but not least at all, because this guy has saved my butt a bunch of times, and I've used to have a bunch of these. I really need to get a couple more of them, because the last time I was out, this guy just saved my butt again, because I was using one of those, and I lost that one to a big set of teeth, or a big fish, and this is all I had left on me. And thankfully for that little guy, it did what it needed to. The hologram in this thing is just on point. Obviously, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to know that that looks just like an actual minnow. And because of that, that's the one. So if you're going to have any of these on you at all times, the Matsuo and this guy right here, what did we call that one? I think it's the X-Wrap. And it's got a weird name. It's an X-Wrap something, but it's like they're mini. Like I said, I'm going to find all this stuff for you guys. I'll do the hard work. I'll make sure to find exactly what they all are. And then I'll try to tell you, in the description, I'll try to list the size that you should pick them up in. Because obviously, you could probably get this in a similar size to that. Well, maybe not, but I mean like similar. Or even the Matsuo, they do make these in that size. So like a 5 inch or a 4 inch in that. But these are the sizes and the variety you want to have on you. I mean, if you just went fishing and all you had were these on you, granted, you know, maybe some different colors of each one, but this is the size structure you had, I can almost guarantee in the fall you would come home with either a bunch of fish to take home,
or you'd be a happy camper playing catch and release all day long, because you'd find at least one of these, I could promise you, would work.
Alright, so hopefully my half awake self here conveyed that to you. It sounded okay. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Obviously, I'm half awake and I'm trying to convey years of information in my head to you guys so that you don't have to spend the years or sleepless nights learning all this stuff. Hopefully this helps a bunch of you guys out. Do yourselves a favor, pick up some of these guys, depending on where you're at in like the bait fish structure, like I said. Obviously get the bigger ones if you guys are fishing lakes that have a bigger bait structure in them. Get the littler ones in high numbers regardless, usually, because they work everywhere. Obviously if you have big bait, you have little bait too before it's a big bait. That's usually how that goes. As simple as and stupid as that sounds, I'm just trying to point out the obvious, I guess. Once again, this is like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I haven't really slept. I hope I get some sleep tonight. Anyways, well, today, I hope I helped you guys out. I hope you guys are enjoying these Tackle Tip Tuesdays. If you guys have any ideas or things you guys might want me to do a Tackle Tip Tuesday on, feel free to leave them in the comment section of any of my Tackle Tip Tuesday videos. I try to read all of them, and obviously I'm going to use them if they're, helpful for everybody else. So, obviously, if you're not new here, you know what's up. But if you are new, please just remember to